Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Natural Living Workshop with community herbalist Lily Cunning, who volunteers with us, and she formulates for. Oh, Katie, how did you set up in the other room? She formulates for Haven Herbs. So we're really glad, Lily, that you are part of our team, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time and talent and expertise with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, today is a special day. It is my birthday, and I get to spend it with all of you. I'm very excited about that. Um, so today we're going to be talking about all the different contagious infections that are going around and how to stay safe and protected with all of them. And I went through what are considered sort of the top five in the United States currently, um, because of either how dangerous they are or how quickly they spread and such. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, y'all see it. Um, a few years back, I gave a similar talk about just COVID. Um, COVID is included in the top five. I'm not sure if people are aware of that. People talk about COVID as if it's past tense, but it is not. And in addition, there are several other diseases and infections that we need to talk about so that everybody can stay well. So, our top five in 2026, as of April 2026, are measles, which used to be considered no longer a threat and are back. The different types of seasonal flus, the most common right now are A and B. COVID, uh, Mpox, which used to be called monkeypox, and tick-borne illnesses, two of them, anaplasmosis and Lyme disease. And so we're going to get into each one. Luckily, a lot of the lifestyle strategies that I will talk to you about actually cover several of these. So when you do some lifestyle changes in order to stay safe, you're actually staying safe from several different types of infections. So let's jump into it. And as Darlene said, if you have a question and you don't want to lose it, just go ahead and type it in the chat. And I will get to them. I have time for Q&A at the end of the session. Or you can wait until the end and unmute and ask as well. Either way is fine with me. So the question is, why are there so dang many to worry about these days? And unfortunately, there are several major reasons with some sub reasons. So the first one is our immunity gap, or to make it clear, why measles is back. So our country is not very good at public health measures. I'm not sure if this is something that you're aware of, but we stopped way too early with COVID precautions, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But we also, combined with that, we have a lot of vaccine hesitancy and skepticism in the last decade or so. And so when people drop from getting vaccines and opting in to vaccinations, herd immunity goes down, and there's a certain percentage of the population that needs to be vaccinated in order for everyone to benefit. Um, and unfortunately, due to vaccine skepticism, but also COVID disruptions in healthcare, that's what we call the pandemic hangover. Hospitals and clinics have yet to recover from the incredible disruption that COVID caused. And so there were gaps in people getting their MMR. And usually, MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines are done in childhood. You get two doses and then you're done. Um, but between 2020 and 2023, so many people, so many children did not get their MMR scheduled. And so now these children are entering school and they're potentially contagious if they get infected. The other thing to know about measles is that it causes immune amnesia. Now, this is not something that I knew about until we started talking about I started researching for this slideshow because, I'm Gen X. I was vaccinated with the MMR vaccine, and I never really had to think about measles in my lifetime until now, right? But one of the things that measles does is it causes your immune system to forget everything that it has built up to fight infections. So we talk about, your immune system learning lessons on how to fight certain things, and then you become immune once you get infected. Well, unfortunately, if you get infected with measles, it can cause your immune system's memory to be wiped. And you are back to square one as if you were a newborn baby, for months or years after you recover from measles. With any other infection that comes down the pike. So it's really important for folks, who are in cancer treatment to make sure that they are not exposed to measles, because not only is measles terrible and potentially lethal, but also it can cause your immune system even more compromises. The other reason why there are so many infections to worry about is the zoonotic jump. So, this is when infections jump from a non-human animal to the human population. And COVID-19 was one of those zoonotic jumps. So was the avian flu and the swine flu and Mpox. They started out in animal populations and have infected humans. And these are all human-made problems, right? We have gotten rid of a lot of the wild spaces where these animals lived without contact to humans. And so, as we expand, development, we come in contact with wildlife that carry novel diseases for the human creature, right? Things that we've never encountered before. The other reason is industrialized farming, not that, small farmer that you see at the farmer's market, but the high density livestock farming, the huge, smelly facilities that treat animals as widgets. It allows all kinds of infections to really infect large populations of these livestocks and mutate very rapidly and develop the ability to infect people. That's how we got swine flu. Um, and climate change, which is also caused by human beings. So as the planet warms, we're seeing animals and insects come into new areas where they weren't before. It wasn't their habitat, but now they bring their pathogens with them. So all the tick-borne illnesses that you see used to be sort of New England woodlands, and they have slowly crept westward. They are now here to stay in Ohio from deer ticks, both Lyme disease and anaplasmosis. And so, we are causing a lot of problems, not just for the planet, but for ourselves. And then finally, hyperconnectivity, right? We live in a very modern era where people can travel across the world within a day. And it just makes it very hard to contain infection. Um, you know, uh, Quarantine still exists, but only when we discover that people are infected, right? So, things have been tracked now, infections have been tracked, and some of them take less than 24 hours to spread across the globe. We also live in dense urban areas more than ever before. And that causes especially infections that are spread by respiratory, either droplets or, air, um, can spread quite quickly, right? And because things can spread quite quickly, that means that the mutation rates are faster, right? We get more mutations, and more mutations mean less immunity for the people exposed. So these are all the reasons why we have to worry about all of these new plagues. Um, and who knows, maybe we will learn our lessons and do better. But generally speaking, as a holistic practitioner, prevention is better than treatment. I would rather you not get sick with any of these because you took some precautions when you were able. Now, not everybody is able to get vaccinated against any of these things, depending on where you are in your treatment plan. Um, so encouraging all of your loved ones to get those vaccines is going to be important, as is, and I know that people are fatigued about it, masking. Um, I was very mask fatigued, last year. The beginning of the year, I was masking all the time I went into public, and slowly those things started disappearing. Although I still mask when I go into a hospital. I've been into the emergency room with several friends. Um, these days, and hospitals are are dangerous. That's where all the sick people are. So you want to make sure that you are masking. Now, I did this deck is going to be made available to you after this event, and throughout it are links. So on this page, the vaccination link is literally a place where you can enter your zip code and find out where the nearest free vaccination clinic is nationwide. And then this one over here, Flow Mask, it's the mask that I like the best. So, first of all, you need to use a good mask that is equivalent or better than an N95 in order to really make it worth your while. Flow Mask is better than an N95. And I have one. I don't get paid by them, by the way. I just think that they're a really good product. So they've built sort of uh, a mask framework that goes over your face, and it keeps the mask a little bit away from your nose and mouth so it's not always getting sucked in. That's one thing I hated about wearing disposable N95s is it just gets sucked in and blown out, and it fogged up my glasses. The flow mask doesn't do that. And the filters, you swap them out, are either good for 10 or 20 hours in a mostly maskless environment. And we'll talk about like what masks are good for how long in a second. But I also like it because it has a silicone sort of frame around the edge, so it makes an airtight seal for you, and it's more comfortable than those scratchy disposable masks. So masking is a major way to stay well. And I know people are tired of it, and I know people give you dirty looks sometimes, but honestly, it's better just not to care what those people think. They're silly. They've politicized something that should not be political. Public health should not be a political issue at all. Let's talk about the individual infections, starting with measles. So it is a virus, and it is on the move, right? Early 2026, it lost its eliminated status, which is shame on us, right? The fact that we had an infection beat that no one was getting it for years, and now all of a sudden there's a resurgence, particularly in vulnerable populations like children, and those are the folks who are more likely to die from measles. It makes it a really big concern for health officials. And if you look at the stats, there are 19 new outbreaks this year of measles around the country. Here in Ohio, the national trend and the Ohio trend is that 92% of the cases that are here are unvaccinated individuals, right? Which mostly mean children. Um, so again, getting the MMR if you haven't had it, making sure that people that you come in contact with do. Um, And really debunking those myths about vaccines, I think, are super important. It is highly contagious. Micro droplets hang in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person has left the room. So just walking through an empty room that someone who had measles breathed in can be the source of infection. And so getting the vaccine, you get 2 doses of the MMR vaccine, make you almost impervious to measles. Um, and I'm glad I've had it, and I'm glad that my son has had it, right? If you find and keeping in touch with what's going on in public health in your community, if you find that an outbreak is reported, then I would steer clear of public gathering spaces if you are unvaccinated. Um, so the way to do that is Google has this really awesome feature called Google Alerts, and you can go to alerts.google.com and type in your email address and then type in any search parameters that you want. So let's say you want to know measles outbreak Ohio, right? You can go ahead and submit that. And then anytime there is a news story about a measles outbreak in Ohio, it's going to email it to you and it's going to email you a summary. And you can choose how often you get those delivered. But it is a really great way of staying on top of the news without having to, watching too much of the news can be very upsetting. So, really staying in touch with baseline, public health stuff is really great. There are also sites that you can visit to see how prevalent different infections are to you, and I can share that with Darlene as well. But let's talk about seasonal influenza. So, it is common to get them, and so people often just sort of dismiss them. In fact, they were dismissing COVID as just another flu. But the flu actually can be lethal, particularly to immune compromised people and children and the elderly. And if it's allowed to continue to infect people, it mutates and it becomes stronger and more resistant to the flu shot, but also any sort of treatments that we might have. The annual flu shot will protect you from last year's big viruses. The way that they formulate that at the World Health Organization is they look at all of the outbreaks of influenza across the globe and they figure out the major ones that would be beneficial, and then they wrap them all up into one vaccine that is made available about 6 to 8 months later. So, that said, the diseases continue to spread and mutate, and so newer mutations may not be covered by the shot, but they also may be. So, just a fact of how vaccines are compounded and decided upon can mean that the flu shot will protect you from the big ones that have been going around, but maybe not some of the newer ones. Again, an N95 mask will protect you for 5 hours in a mostly maskless environment. So even if you're the only one in the room that has masks, wearing an N95 protects you for 5 hours, which means a trip to the grocery store, a little bit more freedom to get out and about, right? But a lesser mask may protect you as little as 20 minutes. So let's talk about that in a second. But here are some of the major flus that have happened in different time periods and their death tolls, both globally and in the United States. It's the flu can be a very big deal. So being dismissive of it maybe makes you feel less anxious, but it's something that you should protect yourself from. The transmission rate, we're currently at the tail end of flu season, right? As we leave winter and we're starting to get outside more, flu rates drop because we're in less recirculated air. Um, Ohio here, it's stable but present. And Northeast Ohio in particular is a hotbed of flu. And 3.3% of our population as of mid-April had contracted the flu. It is also transmitted by respiratory droplets, coughing, sneezing, touching contaminated surfaces. So, the way to prevent getting the flu is not just the annual vaccine, but also frequent hand washing because you're touching things that other people touched or coughed on or sneezed around, masking, and of course, staying home when you're symptomatic and encouraging all of your loved ones to stay home when they're symptomatic. One of the things I have been so frustrated about is so my friend has several kids in the public school system here in the small Ohio town where I live. And the school has been really dismissive about when her kids are sick and the fact that they should just come to school, even with a doctor's note. Like they treat people like criminals. It's weird. But it's like that has meant huge spikes in all kinds of illnesses in those schools. It's kind of ridiculous, but basic hygiene can go a really long way in keeping you healthy. I always keep hand sanitizer in my purse and in my car, although hand washing is better than sanitizer. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Here's a very interesting chart. So this was created in the spring of 2021, specifically around COVID, but it's the hypothetical scenario that there are two people in a room, one person is infected and one person is not. And then based on what kind of mask they're using, how much protection they have. So if nobody's wearing anything, you've got about 15 minutes before you're potentially exposed to COVID in particular, although this definitely applies to measles. If you just have a cloth masks, I remember when they were super trendy and you had different patterns and everybody had one. They're not very protective, turns out. And so even if the infected person is wearing an N95 and the not infected person is just wearing a cloth mask, it goes up to a little over 3 hours, right? The maximum amount of protection is when both people are wearing an N95, and that is good for 25 hours. But if you look, the 5 hour figure that I quoted before is if you're wearing an N95 in a mostly maskless environment, you can get up to 5 hours of protection. It's just the right thing to do. I know people are tired of it, they're not super comfortable, but it is something that I would really urge you to consider. I keep my masks and replacement filters in the car because you just never know when you're going to need it, right? Hand washing, very basic. I know, it's silly for me to teach you how to wash your hands, but many people were never taught how to wash their hands. And so you wet your hands first, you soap it up. Any soap will do. You do not have to use an antibacterial soap. All soap is antibacterial. That one just has added antibiotics to it, which you don't really want. And then you're going to rub your hands together for at least 20 seconds, getting in all parts, not just the palms, but in between in the fingers and the back of the hands too. And then you'll rinse it, removing all the soap. And then you need to dry your hands. If you keep your hands wet and just sort of fling them, you're bound to touch things that you have much more increased likelihood to pick up because you had wet hands. So dry your hands thoroughly. Um, Washing your hands with soap and water is preferable to hand sanitizer. It works more effectively. However, hand sanitizer is better than nothing. So when I pump gas, for example, that pump has been touched by who knows who, right? And I don't know, it's probably germy and gross. So once I'm done pumping my gas, the first thing I do after I close the door is I use hand sanitizer before I leave the gas station. It's one of those places where you can't wash your hands, but it's better than nothing. And just make sure that you rub the hand sanitizer in until it's dry as well. And you may need to use a paper towel or a napkin or something to get them completely dry. I have this one bottle of sanitizer that always gives you way too much when you squirt it, and you have to end up sharing it. But the role of masking is four of the top five infections. Measles, influenza, COVID-19, and Mpox, all uh, masking protects you from all of them. So, I would highly encourage you to consider your mask. This is a picture of a disposable N95. It has the little uh, metal thing to pinch your nose and kind of make it uh, conform a little to your face. And then you also want to make sure that the elastic straps, if you're using the disposables, actually pull the mask close to your face and there are no gaps at all. Gaps mean exposure, right? And so sometimes I have a small head. And so I used to have to like tie little knots in the back to make it pull more. Now with my flow mask, it's all adjustable and I have it so that it fits my face better. That's another reason why I like having a regular mask that you can get used to and customize because it just makes it so much more comfortable and effective. So I want to talk a little bit about Mpox. We'll get to that in a second. First, let's talk about COVID. I'm sure we're all COVIDed out, but unfortunately, COVID is not done with us. We failed at treating the pandemic the way that we should. We stopped sequestering and quarantining. We changed the rules to get people back to work to stimulate the economy rather than public health. We stopped masking too soon, and not enough people got vaccinated. And so we were able to get more people infected and have the virus mutate. This virus mutates faster than the flu. Um, and it is not the flu, okay? COVID is something else altogether. It is a virus, and often it acts like when it's a mild case of the initial infection, as the flu does, as a respiratory infection. But let me tell you, even mild cases of COVID can end up with long COVID. It's not that you got a really bad case and that's how you got long COVID. No. The more you are infected, even if you're only infected once, the more likely you are to develop long COVID symptoms. And long COVID symptoms are organ failure, gastroparesis, neurological seizures, and they are real. I know two people, young people, younger than me, who have long COVID, and it has completely changed the trajectory of their life. They are no longer able to work. They are no longer able to care for themselves. They have to have caregivers, and they are often in and out of the hospital. It is not something that we want. And so I really want to encourage people to avoid COVID infection as much as possible. New variants come along every few months. Um, and so it's important to avoid it. Um, we have a stable transmission rate here in the United States because most people aren't masking anymore and they're not sequestering anymore. And in Ohio, we have low but persistent circulation of COVID. 1.6% of the population. And I know that seems small, but here's the thing. We are no longer tracking infection rates or death rates. It used to be that the government was collecting this information and it was sent and aggregated. There's no longer one single source where we can track uh, transmission and deaths. The consistent way that I have found is at looking at wastewater treatment plant data because all of these shed viruses that are going around the population are in our poop. And so they scan public poo to see what is still prevalent in communities. And so that is how you can kind of figure out, okay, based on my zip code, how prevalent is the Ohio transmission rate. So this 1.6% is a CDC number, but the wastewater treatment plants are more like 6% based on the actual shed viruses that they have found. So it's kind of this weird ostrich syndrome where we feel like if we just don't collect the data and we don't talk about it, somehow it will go away. But that is not the case. Now, COVID-19 is endemic rather than a pandemic, which is worse because it means we have to live with it, period. We did not defeat it, and so now we live with it. And so to stay safe. You want to keep getting your boosters. Every time they come out with a new one, get it. Use high quality masks, particularly in high risk settings where there are crowded environments, and improve your indoor air filtration wherever you are, whether that's home or at work. We want to catch those viruses with HEPA filters as much as possible. Mpox is on the watch list because it has entered the United States and it really wasn't supposed to be here. So high risk groups really need to watch out, and that's anyone who's immune compromised like yourselves. And in Ohio, we still are getting cases reported. Um, it's close contact. It can be transmitted like a respiratory virus. It's most often spread by skin to skin contact. So hugging someone, for example, uh, and you can get infected by sharing bed linen or towels, or washing the linen of someone who's been infected. It creates a rash, hence the name pox in the name. And if you or someone you know gets a rash and you don't know what it is, you really need to go get it checked out. Um, Even if you think it's just hives, go get your rash checked out. It is important to do so. And finally, tick-borne illnesses. These are all spread by deer ticks, which there's a drawing of it here. There are a number of ways to prevent um, tick-borne diseases, but they are on the rise for sure. Ohio is considered a high incidence state, um, and it is caused by bites from a tick. Now, often we don't even know a tick is biting us, right? It gets on you, they're very sneaky. Um, but there are ways to avoid getting bitten by ticks and ways to avoid even if you are bitten by a tick, ways to avoid infection. And I'm going to teach you those. So, first, using safe insect repellents, making sure that it says it's effective against ticks as well as mosquitoes is important. It's also important when you're out and about in areas with longer vegetation where ticks can hide and then get onto you, that you wear overlapping clothing. If you're out in the garden, tuck your pants into your socks. And if you're wearing, shorts and you have exposed bare skin, you're going to want to make sure you apply a lot of insect repellent to that bare skin. I tend to just brave the heat and use clothing that overlaps. My gloves go over my sleeves, my pants get tucked into my socks. Wearing a hat is super helpful because often they'll get into your scalp. Um, and then, of course, performing tick checks. You need a second person to perform an adequate tick check. So someone who is fine looking at your body for ticks, right? It's important to remove a tick properly to avoid infection. And so investing in a tick remover or fine tip tweezers, the kind that are needle nose tweezers, are the best way to remove a tick. And so what you want to do is you want to grab that tick as close to your skin as possible, making sure that you have blocked the proboscis. The proboscis is like the little tube that they inject into your skin to suck out your blood. Um, because when the tick is stressed out, this is gross, but when the tick is stressed out and you're trying to remove it, it can barf through its proboscis into your body, and that's when you get the infection, right? Um, because it's infected, the tick. So if you grasp the proboscis and you pull it out from there, none of that nasty barf can come through the proboscis and infect you. And if it manages to get a little, it's going to be a lot less than if you had just, yanked on it using its body and possibly even leaving part of the tick embedded in your skin. Do not twist it, lift it straight up. And after you have removed the tick, you are going to want to disinfect the area with soap and water, with rubbing alcohol, an iodine scrub. Any of those are good. Make sure you have that at the ready uh, before you start removing the tick. You just want to get it all done in one fell swoop. And then I flush those little buggers down the toilet. Um, I don't want them anywhere near me anymore. And they're so sturdy. You can remove a tick and squish it with those tweezers, and they're still alive. They're still ready to come back for more. I remember when I was a small child going to Girl Scout camp, I would come home every year with a ton of ticks on me. But this was before ticks were such a disease vector, right? And so my mother used to take Vaseline and spread it all over the tick like a very thick thing, and then it couldn't breathe. And so it would start backing out, and then my mom would grab it. They don't recommend that anymore. Definitely grabbing it by the proboscis is the number one recommended way to remove a tick in these days of Lyme disease and such. So, preventing the spread of disease. So, for airborne and droplet past infections, which are measles, COVID, and flu, wear a mask. That is the number one way to stop infection. Replace air filters in buildings frequently and avoid large crowds. Um, we're entering the summer where there are festivals and fairs and all kinds of cool gatherings. Um, you know, if you're gonna go to something like that, be sure it's outdoors, not indoors. Make sure you have a mask with you. Take people breaks. Um, it's a health issue. I know it sucks, but it's a health issue. For Mpox, communication with anyone that you touch skin with is super important. You should trust them, and they should trust you to get any rashes that have presented checked out, um, and to report any rashes before you're touching skin. So yeah, get those checked out. And then tick-borne illnesses, invest in a tick remover. I would do it now before, outdoor living becomes a thing. Wear insect repellents, and Haven Herbs does make one that's effective on ticks as well as mosquitoes. And wearing overlapping clothing. Doing tick checks after you come back in, super important. So, immune system support, generally speaking, to build up your immune system to help it respond better to issues. I've got a few things here that link to Haven Herbs, a couple products, Fire Cider and Time to Elderberry That Cold, as well as collections. Adaptogens and the immune system collection are all there to help you. Do people know what adaptogens are? Um, so adaptogens are a class of herbs that help achieve healthy homeostasis, and they work on the endocrine system, the immune system, and the nervous system in particular. Back in the day when I was a kid, during the Olympics, there was one year that the Russians were just kicking major butt in the Olympics, and everybody was accusing them of doping. They weren't doping. they were using an adaptogen called Eleuthero or Siberian ginseng, and it increased their capacity and resilience and endurance well beyond what other athletes were capable of because they took this on the regular. It's available to everyone, right? Eleuthero. But there are collections of adaptogens. There are whole classes of adaptogens that would be great for you to stay well. The other few things that I would recommend lifestyle-wise for immune system support. I'm going to teach you an exercise that I learned in Chinese medicine school. Getting outside, gardening, getting your hands in the dirt actually help increase your beneficial bacteria on your skin and in your gut. And Shinrin Yoku, which I have recommended in previous sessions, is the Japanese word for forest bathing. It's actually recommended by their doctors to go outside into a nature area where you can't hear human activity and just sit and take in the sounds and the smells and the feelings of being surrounded by nature, listening to bird song, listening to the wind in the trees. It is helpful to your immune system. They have done studies and it works. So let's do that ear stimulation. If you are open to it, um, the ear, the outside of the ear, have a ton of acupuncture points on the ear as sort of like a little microcosm for the whole body. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stimulate quite a few of them by squeezing and pulling around the ear. So starting with the earlobes, grab them and pinch them as much as feels comfortable, and then just pull straight down multiple times and then pull outward, right? And then we're just going to do the same thing, but around sort of the cartilage area that surrounds the ear, right? So we're just going to pull out in as many directions as we can and as possible, scraping our thumbs across the surface of the ear, because all of these points in here stimulate proper immune functioning. So you can do this as much as you like, right? If you have to go somewhere that you think might make your immune system take a hit, sit in your car and do that for a minute before you go into wherever it is. Um, it is a super helpful way to just stimulate proper immune functioning. Um, and yeah, so feel free to use that as much as possible. My job here is to get you to become aware of how these things are spread, how we can avoid infection and stay well. And I'm hoping that I made a good impression. I see that we have some questions in the chat. We're going to make time. We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to answer your questions. Feel free to put more in the chat, or you can also unmute. And once again, I will be sending Darlene the deck, which has some embedded links in it for you to take advantage of. But let's look at the chat. All right. Oh, thank you. Happy birthday. Yay. Um, all right. So MMR in the 60s and then the early 80s. No, you should actually be good. You can talk to your doctor about it, but usually if you've had the 2 doses, you are good. Now, I will say there are people that are exceptions. I have a friend who's had so many vaccinations, but she never retains permanent immunity because her body just doesn't work that way. And so she is constantly getting reboosted because it goes away for her. You might want to talk to your doctor about that. I'm assuming you're not one of those people because they're not common. It's not statistically prevalent, but it is a significant minority of people. What do I think of the air dryers in public restrooms? Well, studies have shown that they just blow fecal matter around and they contaminate your hands after you've washed them. I prefer paper towels even though it's, using something disposable. The bonus of using the paper towels is that, you can dry your hands and then you can use it to open the door before you throw it away. Because, man, so many people don't wash their hands after using the bathroom and then they touch that door, right? So even if you've washed your hands, you go to touch that door, you've been contaminated again. So paper towels are my preference. And if they aren't available, I will dry my hands on the backs of my pants, and then I will use my sleeve to open up the door. I know it sounds paranoid, but honestly, with how much these go around and how often I see people in the community getting sick, my job is to see people who are sick. So I kind of have a handle on, what's going around more than the average person. If I can prevent it, I'm gonna, because it's preventable, right? And I don't care if people think I'm paranoid. So there. Um, are all ticks infected or just some of them? So the ticks that you have to worry about are black-legged deer ticks. They're the ones that have anaplasmosis and Lyme. They have not discovered any other species of tick that have the infection. They may have other infections, who knows? But those are the ones that you have to worry about. And not all deer ticks have them. So deer ticks are sort of the weird bridge between deer who have the infection and don't seem to be as bothered by anaplasmosis or Lyme disease as humans are. Um, and then the ticks bite them, and then they bite us, right? They are indiscriminate about the blood that they want. So yeah, it's not all of them, but it's a significant percentage enough that you're just going to want to take prevention, even if you're not sure if it's a deer tick, right? Just remove it the same way, clean it out the same way, um, and take precautions. What ingredients are safe in insect spray? So I am not a big fan of DEET or pyrethrin, which are the two common commercial pesticides used in bug sprays. They are neurotoxins. And I find that, spraying yourself with a neurotoxin when it's not necessary, um, yeah, just why? Why? So, the ones that I use are a combination of herbs and essential oils that work on both ticks and mosquitoes. And they have been studied in lab tests, right? So lemon eucalyptus, for example, is more effective than DEET on mosquitoes. There's this cool YouTube video, cool depending on who you are, right? So they have this big Pyrex box full of mosquitoes with an armhole in there, and they sprayed people with like a DEET-based mosquito repellent and stuck their arm in there to see how many bit. And then they did the same with lemon eucalyptus essential oil, stuck their hand in there. Much more effective, much more. Rose geranium, in particular, geranium is wonderful on ticks. And so it also has the benefit of you could buy a whole bunch of geraniums, which are pleasant and they're very smelly, and you can put them on the perimeter of your porch, right, to repel the ticks away from your outdoor living space, right? I can't help you that much if you go out into the grass or the garden, but bug spray can. But the rose geranium on your porch, awesome, right? It just keeps those ticks away. Um, so yeah, so Elaine, the two ingredients that I don't like that are the most common in bug spray are DEET and pyrethrin. So those are both toxic and make vulnerable people unwell, right? So those are the ones that I would avoid. I make a ridiculous amount of bug spray starting now. Like I've already started doing it because the farmers market starts in a couple weeks. I'll be selling, many, many units in my small town of bug spray. And then I also sell it online because everybody needs it. Oh, spell it. All right, I will try. Pyrethrin. I think that's how you spell it. Um, don't quote me on it. I might have gotten it wrong, but yeah, pyrethrin is also not a very safe thing. So honestly, you know, there are safe insect repellents out there, not just the one I make, but others. And I would make sure that a lot of them are based around essential oils. I have essential oils in mine. You want to make sure it's a safe dilution of the essential oils. You don't want to put unadulterated essential oils on your skin. That's too much of a load. It needs to be in a larger bottle that, has been um, diluted. The other thing is making sure those essential oils have been diluted in alcohol, if it's a spray, so that it distributes evenly throughout the liquid. Um, a lot of people dilute essential oils in oils, and that's fine if you're making like a salve or something. That's your bug salve. Um, but it would not be good in a spray because it'll clog up and gunk up your sprayer eventually, and you'll have to shake it in order to equally distribute the oil and the water because they don't like each other, right? Uh, Oil is hydrophobic. So having it based in alcohol eliminates that need to constantly shake it up and have it get clogged. So those are some things. Dogs can carry infectious ticks, yes. They can get bitten by a deer tick. That deer tick drops off in the house and then it goes and bites someone else. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and so you also want to spray your dog when they go outside, right? You don't want them getting ticks either. And dogs can get Lyme disease, and it's very painful for them. It affects their joints. They get really swollen, and it's really bad. If you know anyone that has Lyme, whether it's a dog or a human, I do have a Lyme protocol that I sell. It has become, unfortunately, very popular here in Ohio. So, there are ways to get rid of the spirochetes that have infected you. Um, it is possible. So, um, I'm around people with dogs a lot. Yes. Um, Yeah, so just make sure that you yourself are wearing a tick repellent when you're around them, because that's one way of protecting yourself from ticks. Let's see, recommendation for getting over a common cold negative for COVID. Yeah, so elderberry is fantastic at stimulating your immune system, your cytokine response. Echinacea is also really great at building more fighter cells if it's just lingering. Adaptogens are going to help you build strength and resilience. Ones that really help the immune system are some of the medicinal mushrooms, like reishi is really great. So in the deck that Darlene sends you, there are several recommendations, and you can kind of look over the links to see if there are any immune support formulas that look good to you. I really like when I have a cold, warm things are comforting. And so I like to drink tea, herbal teas when I have a cold. It soothes the throat, but it also just warms you from the inside and delivers all kinds of great herbal medicine. I have a cold and flu tea called Under the Weather, which is really great when you have the colds. Yeah. Yeah. Um, awesome. Well, we do have 6 minutes left. I know that we've got some other programming to promote. I'm happy to answer any further questions that folks have. I'm going to be back here in May. What am I teaching in May? Let me see. It's Oh, gut health is whole body health. Yes, that is what we are going to be discussing. So, ways to really build that digestive fire and promote digestive wellness. So, that's what will happen in May's cancer support community class. What else is happening, Darlene?
Um, we do have one more question. Does heat spread germs and cold weather kill them?
Um, Not exactly. Um, Cold weather. Doesn't destroy germs. In fact, more people get sick in the winter because they are spreading their germs inside to each other. Um, so Cold often makes viruses go dormant, but then they resurrect themselves. They're pretty miraculous, weird creatures. Um, Heat doesn't really spread germs, but it does, bacteria in particular and fungus really like to grow in hot, humid climates. Um, when we see, if we put food out on our counter, um, in a hot house with no climate control, you're going to see that rot faster, for example, than if it had been refrigerated. But that doesn't mean it kills the germs. It basically neutralizes them for a period of time. But if you put that, you know, in a sterile box, it still has those pathogens on there. It's just they start replicating faster when they're not stunned by cold. So it doesn't really kill them, it just sort of makes them dormant, if that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, everybody.
One
For-
more, Lily, real quick,
oh,
did you suggest mask wearing outside in a crowd?
I totally did. Um, you get exposure by airborne droplets. Even if you're staying away, if you're walking through an area that other people have been, yes, absolutely. Remember, measles can stay hanging in the air for 2 hours after an infected person has walked through. COVID has similar hanging in the air kind of capabilities. And so, yes, masking is important in a crowd, period. Masking is important in a place where people have gathered or are gathering, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lily. Yes, I agree, Elaine. Happy birthday, Lily. Thank you for spending your birthday with us, sharing with us your expertise, knowledge, and just the wealth of information that you share every month. I hope everybody has it on their calendar to join Lily again on the 26th, as she mentioned. Gut health is whole body health. She will be presenting the Natural Living Workshop the fourth Tuesday of every month, with the exception of December. That holiday week just gets really bad. So, Lily, again, thank you so much. So glad everybody was able to join us today. I will forward on the slide deck, as Lily mentioned, and then I'll be uploading this to YouTube a little later today. So, take care, everybody.
Bye. Have a good day.